So we're back again for another Think and Link here in the RSP Architects office, one of our sponsors. They helped redesign this beautiful building, which was the Grain Belt Brewery building. I refer to it as the Castle to Beer, which I think is appropriate. And I do believe we still have Grain Belt beer. I think that was part of the lease agreement, wasn't it? That we had to have Grain Belt every time on, not on tap, but in the bottle. So RSP is one of the sponsors of this wonderful event, as well as Capsule. Capsule is a firm, is a special projects agency that I founded with Brian Aducci almost 25 years ago, which is relevant to this conversation because Jess is here, which she'll mention later. In this 25 storied year history, we work with clients in marketing, brand, and design, and clients like Patagonia, PepsiCo, Hydro Flask. Quick Trip is a new client, amazing, wonderful cultural phenom that is Quick Trip. I don't know if you know, anybody know Quick Trip? You ever heard of Quick Trip? People get married at Quick Trips. I know, that's what I said. Yeah, it's impressive. They have a following. They have a big following, I've discovered. Yeah, fanatical fans. We also have one other sponsor, Lake One, which is a HubSpot implementation partner. Anything, if someone says CRM in your office, you go, what's CRM? You ask HubSpot or ask Lake One about HubSpot, or anything related to HubSpot. You should check with them because they are absolutely phenomenal at what they do. And well, of course, we have our wonderful two guests, which I'm going to do a little intro to, and then I'm going to hand it over to Jess, and she's going to do an intro of herself as well as start to ask some questions. Cool. Okay. Really, you don't need an introduction. You don't, but I will. I'll do it. I'll do it. Okay. Amanda Brinkman. She is, I'm not going to read this, but I'm going to at least get the one thing I need to get right because I always do this backwards. Do well by doing good. I always do it in reverse. So I have to read it specifically. The purpose pursuit is a big piece of what you're doing right now and the speeches you're doing, coming off of Deluxe as well as coming off of the show on Hulu and all the things related to that. Absolute celebrity. I was going to try to find another equal celebrity to you in town. I don't know if we've got a local celebrity that's at your level, honestly. Who's that Josh guy? Is there a movie star? Wasn't there a Josh guy? But I don't think he's not at your level either. Rush? No, it's not. It's not. No, because he left. Didn't he leave? He's like in Hollywood and whatever with Hollywood. Anyway, yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff we'll get into with you, but absolutely phenomenal background. And there's a lot of Fallon people here because apparently you worked there years ago on some BMW thing. I'm around long enough to have known what that was. And then Lisa. So Lisa, I just found out and remembered or was reminded that we met through Jay Schrankler, who is an icon, an amazing human being, a friend of our family, a relative of my mom because she donated her kidney to him. My mom gives away everything. She's amazing. She should be on this stage sometime. But anyway, and then we met when you're at Pentair, and then you moved on to Resideo and really senior marketing roles. But I think that the more impressive thing is we have Aaron here who has followed you around everywhere. And Aaron mentioned the fact that you know a great leader when people follow. A good hire, from your perspective, it's a good hire. For her, it's a great leader to follow around. So two amazing guests we have on the stage. As you can see, this is a pretty casual conversation. We're going to have about 45 minutes of discussion between us, and then we're going to turn it over to you to ask any questions you want. Usually our audience asks the toughest questions of our guests. So, just think about it as you're going through this. Try to have the toughest question you have. Jess, take it away.
Hello. Ooh, okay. First of all, thank you, Aaron, for having us all here today and continuing these fantastic conversations. I think they are so insightful, the ones that I've been able to attend, and just a really nice way to connect with different people that you don't usually do. So that's fantastic. And thanks to Lisa and Amanda for having this discussion. I know it's going to be incredible. And I just want to say, take away from today, I think that this is just such a great start to the year to think about reflection and renewal and thinking about culture and purpose. So hopefully everybody walks away with something to write in their journal maybe tonight. I'm Jessica Carlson. I am a communications consultant. I like to say I worked with Aaron 100 years ago, but apparently it was only like 20 years ago at Capsule. So, and then I moved on to Weber Shandwick and Target and am now consulting on my own. So I'm really excited to get to know Amanda and Lisa a little bit more today. So with that, we'll jump into questions. Before we get into the real meaty stuff, I would love to know the stories behind your backgrounds. Like, we know where you were, we know what you did, but what brought you here? What was your journey? What was your experience? I'm gonna go in alphabetical order. Amanda.
Last name or first name?
First name, alphabetical order.
Okay, so what I'm saying, adding color to the background?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so I started my career on the ad agency side, so Conan Wolf in London, and then what was Campbell Methune, for those of us who are from this market know that agency, and then had an amazing time at Fallon for a number of years. And then I moved over to the corporate side, United Health Group, Allianz, General Mills, and then most recently at Deluxe for almost a decade. Halfway through my time at Deluxe, I felt like I wanted to take a bit of a right turn. Thank you. And focus more on production. One of the things I was doing at Deluxe was hosting and producing a television show called The Small Business Revolution, which was our response to low brand awareness with small businesses. But by its very nature, it was engaging our audience in a really unique way. Like, instead of creating the ad that was interrupting what small businesses wanted to be watching, we were creating the show that they wanted to watch. And what was most meaningful to my team and I was that it was doing some sort of good in the world. It was not just changing the lives of the businesses we were helping, but the communities it was in, and it was advocating for supporting small businesses and the importance of doing so. And so about halfway through, I had been on this like CMO track. And about halfway through, I just started to be real honest about what I loved the most about my job. And I loved the days we were on set and the days we were working with people. And even back to my Fallon days, like the days we were out on production were my most energizing days. And so I decided to start my own production company and focus on helping other brands do work like the Small Business Revolution, and just focus on that part of my job versus all the other things that were coming with being a C-level executive at a company. And so that is what I'm doing now. And it allows me to focus more time on my speaking as well, which is meaningful to me personally. But it's been really great to be able to work with more than one brand at a time. And be able to bring that kind of long form branded content that matters in the world to life.
So I did not have a traditional linear path to marketing by any stretch of the means. In fact, my background, and I was going to go once upon a time, way back when I was 12, but just kidding. I really had a background in technology. That's where my first love was. I think at the age of like 13 when I got a Commodore 64. So I'm really dating myself. See, what's your name? He looked at me, he knew exactly what I was talking about. Okay, some of you guys don't. But anyways, and so I was really into technology for many, many years. And so when I graduated from undergrad, there was like door number 1, go into consulting, door number 2, go and work for Leo Burnett in advertising, or door number 3, go and work for Canadian Pacific Railroad and be in their digital transformation team. I chose door number 3. And so that's kind of what I did. And I did technology for 10 years, startups, ecosystems, corporate IT, lots of really cool things. Worked on a company was like Skype before Skype was cool. And then for personal reasons, professional reasons, took a gap year. And with that gap year, I had an opportunity to go back and do something I wanted. And I went to Minneapolis College of Art and Design and went and did design. It's kind of the door that I never took, door number 2. So I got an opportunity to do a redo. And so it became another chapter in my life. And led me to marketing. And that's the same Jay Schrankler, going right back now to your story. Jay Schrankler was my first hire. He hired me first into Honeywell, into marketing, coming out of MCAD. So that's how it went. And did that for many, many years. Marketing, she named off some of the companies I was with, Pentair, Chief Brand Officer there, Resideo, Honeywell, and also did a couple of stints in private equity. So that's a whole other conversation talk. But really found with marketing, found a really opportunity to kind of lean on my digital chops, like all the technology chops, and combining it with my love for design and branding. And really that's kind of the stuff I do. And so Amanda and I really gel over brand. That's really, I think, the intersection of the things that we both enjoy. So that's what made me here.
That and wine. And cheese.
Same. Okay, so both of you sort of mentioned this idea of honesty and discovery. And it took you, on different paths and a while to get there. So can you talk a little bit, why is it so important for people to really sort of look inward, think about and discover their superpowers, and how does that help them in their maybe career, and then even beyond that, Lisa, to an organization? How can that help an organization succeed? So talk a little bit about superpowers and kind of the work you guys do there.
I'm actually gonna go first each time. That's what you all right, so I think it is a basic human need to feel like you are good at what you do. And I think we have kind of lost sight of the importance of that. I think we take on these jobs that have all of these other duties. And I think for me, that was what I wrestled with when I was at Deluxe and making this decision to pivot just into production. I had to start looking at, like, on the days that I came home and felt like I kicked ass, like, what did I do on those days? And on the days when I came home and I felt drained and the energy had just been sucked right out of my soul, what did I do on those days? And how do I make more days that look like the ones where I feel like I kick ass? And how do I make less days that are soul sucking? And so that was how I arrived at, like, I need to focus on shedding these other pieces of it. They come with the job I have now, but they don't have to define me moving forward. That I can create a job that looks like a day that brings me joy every day. And I think that, and I don't think you have to quit your job and start your own company like I did to do that. I think you can have honest discussions with your leaders or your managers or your team about, what brings them joy. Are there things on your plate that just are hard for you, or you don't like doing, that brings them joy and they feel good at? And sometimes it's very macro things, like community building. And sometimes it's literally Excel charts. Like, it can be very macro and it can be very micro in terms of what truly brings you energy. And I think it's about being very honest about that with yourself and trying to figure out then how you advocate for creating your job to look more like that. And you might get to a point where you realize that the current job you have just is never going to be more joy than soul sucking. And then maybe you do need to make a change. But when you go into that new job, how do you set that new role up in a way that you're advocating for what's truly going to feed you? You're going to be better for the company. You're going to be more fulfilled as a person. And so I think when people talk about superpowers, I talk about superpowers a lot, and people say, well, how do I figure out what my superpower is? And I think it's the things that come naturally to you, that when someone else says they struggle with it, you're like, you don't think that way? Like, the things that seem so easy to you that you take for granted are your superpowers, because they just are part of who you are. And it could be something like you hear a really daunting project and instantly you can see the vision of where it can go, but you can also see the steps in place. Like, not everyone's brain works that way. That's why when we work with some people, they're overwhelmed when they hear a new idea and shut down right away. And so anyway, I think it's just about stopping to think about, like, what comes so naturally to you that you don't even know that other people don't think that way.
I love that. I love that. I love the energy. I think energy is the theme for me when I think about my superpower. It's where I get a lot of energy from, and as you say, soul sucking, or where things take away. And so part of, I think, being in corporate has always been, there's some roles and some jobs you just had to do, right? So I'm looking at my team over here that I had, budgeting was like this thing I had to do, right? And it killed me every year when I had to go do budgeting. I'm like, oh, but I had to do it. So I couldn't get around it. I couldn't offload it to somebody else. So there's things like that, which I knew sucked my energy, but I have to do it. But I think the other thing I thought was really interesting for me and my superpowers were knowing what I enjoy to do. And I had the pleasure of being in companies where I could hire people. And so when I really, really focus on how do I augment and get a team of people who really augment the things I like to do and also can work from their superpowers. And so I think that's really, a really good way to look at how do you just kind of combine yourself with a whole group of people working in their superpowers. I love the idea of also helping people find theirs. And so it's really, really important when I come somewhere to spend some time talking to people and find out what gels them, right? And go, okay, can I move people around so that they're operating in their superpower as well? And if you get a team like that, it really rocks when you get it all, everyone operating in their superpower.
And I think it's really helpful too. You made a great point. I mean, sometimes you do just have to, like, buck up and say, like, this is a part of making the mission happen, making the work happen in service of the work, in service of the thing that matters. I'm going to just have to do this thing. But both coming to peace with that yourself, like this isn't my whole existence, but it's in service of this thing that matters.
Yeah.
There's only one way and it's through it, but also like bringing your team along too and helping them see that too. Like this isn't, our job isn't budgeting. Your purpose isn't Zoom calls, but the Zoom calls like are in service, or you know, the emails are in service of. And so I think that's a great point you made. Like it's sometimes you just have to do the thing though too.
Yeah, and I think the opposite too is where if you have something you really enjoy doing, the other thing I've done is raise my hand for that more. Right. And so, and that's a good offset, right? So I'm like, oh, I really love the brand stuff. I really love that. You know, so I somehow, because I do, I find that I get pulled into more and more projects like that. So I don't know, I think I saw Janine somewhere here, but I was on the board of Salo, and I swear I joined the board, and within 2 months, let's do a brand project. I don't know if that was my energy or not, but it became a project that we did, right? And so I think when you have something you love to do and you lead with that, it becomes something that people then, you know, gravitate and find you to do it. So works that way too.
Yeah, I have a thought on that. That's so the CMO role. You've both been in the CMO role, right? And it's probably the most miserable role you could possibly, a soul-sucking role, really. I mean, it has to be. Think about it. No, but I mean, right? So the CMO tenure now is down under 24 months, right, or something like that. It's pretty, you know, significant. It's obvious that it's not a fun role, or it can be a challenging role, and to a significant degree. So obviously a team is important in that. Otherwise, it's a soul-sucking role, which is fascinating. That's really cool. You both have been in that, and you've seen it, and you've been through it and seen the other side.
Yeah, I have another acronym for it, by the way. I call it the Chief Miracle Officer.
That is perfect. That is absolutely perfect for it, because that's the expectation, right? Yeah. From on high, you're going to bring it. Yeah.
Deliver or go away. So both of you guys have talked about purpose, and I think that is a really important word that we all are looking for to find the joy, to find our meaning. A lot is talked about finding your why, and perhaps, you know, maybe that's a little overdone. But, you know, we're curious to know sort of, how do individuals discover their purpose? Like it's not a 3-step process, of course. But how do you start that journey? How do you start that process?
And what do you think of cynic? I'm kind of a cynic of cynic right now.
Let's put a pin in that and come back to it. Okay.
That's a good
All
idea.
right. Okay. So I have thoughts for sure. Yes. Okay. I think that we have made purpose the word, like live your purpose. We have made this too big of a thing. We have made it so daunting that it feels like it's something that's way out there, that it's elusive. We can never get to it. And then I think we end up in this place, because it feels so unattainable, that we end up in this place of like purpose paralysis. Like, because we don't know what it is, we're not sure which way to go. So we just kind of keep muddling through this life that we've built for ourselves, feeling bad that we're not somehow living our purpose. And I don't think purpose is macro. I think purpose is quite micro. I think purpose is how you move through the world, like how you interact with each individual person, how you use your superpowers for the greater good of everyone around you. And so I think the way you find your purpose is to quit giving it so much air. Like, just you are your purpose. Like, we've confused calling and vocation. We've confused career and meaning. Like there are 2 rings to purpose, I think. I think there is a purpose that you realize is you and who you were designed to be, and you're on purpose. And then there is, like, if you can find the second ring, which is like your job and who you work for and the people that you're working for, and you believe in the product, you believe in your team, then real magic happens. But you actually don't need the second ring. Like, we're letting our employers bring us purpose. And I think we have to realize that it's within ourselves. And so I think there's steps to figuring out what that is. But the number one thing is just starting to just think of it that way. Like, you are your purpose. Like, who you are is on purpose. Your whole journey to this point has been on purpose. You're in this room tonight on purpose. And I think if we just stop giving it so much power, I think we can just calm the fuck down. And just be, like, just exist and be happy with who you are. I have more to say on it, but I don't want to steal the time. Go ahead.
So I'll take a different angle from it, from someone. Just a jab at you. No, I think for someone who's had to develop a purpose for a company, so I'm going to take it outside of the individual, because I think, you spoke really, really, I think, well about the individual, but you think about the company purpose or an organization purpose. And one of the challenges I have with this is around it being separate from everything else. So I don't know, how many of you guys have values, vision, mission, purpose, like all these different things, right? And so for me, again, I'm really selfish about brand. So I'm going to say the brand promise or your brand core to me is like at the center. And if companies spend time really figuring out what that is, I think everything else should be an offshoot of that. But I find a lot of times what happens is you have a group in HR going off over here and they're working on culture and values, another group over here, the brand team, the marketing team working on brand promise, another team working on something else. We have employer brand now. We have all these different things and they're not interconnected. And I think if you spend the time on what is this company, why are we in business, other than to make profit, that's, if you're a profit company, that's there. Well, what else? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you selling the products and services that you have? Why are these services important? Why are people showing up to pick your company or your brand? Why are they joining your company? If you really get at that heart of it, that becomes to me the brand core, and then everything else is driven around that. So for that purpose, I think it's important to have a purpose of why your business shows up every day.
And like turning it into like actual brand action. Like if you're just calling it brand purpose and you're not doing anything with it, then it's just a like sexier name for mission statement. Like what are you actually doing in the community, like in the world, to make the lives of your customers better, other than just selling them things? Like it has to be bigger than that. Or, I mean, it doesn't have to be, but then you're not gonna be very successful. But
yeah, and it has to be owned by everybody.
Yeah.
So again, I have a lot of little pet peeves, but one is that it's not a marketing job, right? I think it's also something that has to be owned and responsibility from everybody, right, in the company. And so it's something where, your CEO, everybody else has to say, this is important. This is what our purpose is. It's not from a marketing department saying, here's a purpose, everyone else rally around this. It has to come from there. And if it doesn't, then maybe it's not the purpose, right? Or maybe it's the purpose you're trying to push, but it doesn't really ring true. And therefore then it's not authentic and it doesn't go very far. So that's the hardest part, is making it not just coming up with it, but ensuring that it's coming from a place that's supported across the organization and believed as well. And
everyone can see themselves in it. Like I think it's a lot easier actually if you're like in the brand area or marketing, or if you're in customer experience, to feel close to the purpose of the company, because you're so close to literally the customer experience. But what if you're in accounting or HR or finance? It's harder to feel that same purpose. Actually, we found that like with the small business revolution, as successful as that was, we could have done a better job right out of the gate of helping every single person in the organization feel the meaning of that work and how we were demonstrating our brand action.
Absolutely.
We learned it quickly and then made up for it, but we didn't get that right away. So our team was moving through the world feeling great about what we were doing, but we weren't helping each individual at the company see how what they did on a day-to-day basis laddered up and made that purpose and then action
absolutely
possible. And so I think it is about everyone feeling it, but sometimes you have to help articulate it because it's not as obvious.
Yeah. And you've got it when you can go down to a factory floor, when you can go to someone on the front line and go, why, what's our purpose? And they can say it back to you. Then you go, oh, you've done it. You've done a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's true. People feel it.
Go. I don't want to cut it.
I want to come back to the cynic thing.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to pin it. Sorry.
That's okay. We can put it in the garage, or we can take it back out of the
No, I
garage or
definitely-
the parking
yeah.
lot and put it back on the table. I think it's a good part of the conversation, because it's also part of that we've overdone it, which you touched on already. We've made it such a big thing. It's overwhelming to many people, and like you say, paralyzing.
Well, tell people about your cynic.
Right.
Cynic. Like I know what you mean, but
Right. I
but
mean, and I think it yeah.
No.
No.
So go
Okay.
ahead
Simon
and tell
Sinek, who
me.
came up with this wonderful line, which it had its place. It's ran its course, right? It's gone out there. It's been a thing where you got to find your why for the organization, find your why for yourself, and all these other wonderful things, which kind of gets back to purpose. Like, why the hell are you doing this? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you want to live? Why do you want to work? All that. And so, and he is brilliant and very impressive, but it's run its course. It's got to a place where everything it's about the why. And in the world of interacting with brands, consumers, yes, they buy the why, but they also buy the functional what. I don't need to know the why on my garage door opener. Like, why the hell does my garage door, well, I just want the damn thing to open, right? Or my front door, or, you know, a lot of other things. I don't need the why. And it seems to permeate so many different places. It's unfortunate. So thoughts on that and what it's done to the broader brand community? Tainted it, maybe?
I loved it when it came out, I'll be honest. I remember sitting in a workshop and making my marketing team watch the video or the TED Talk and say, okay, we're gonna
Me
like
too. I
walk
agree.
into the senior offices and tell them all about Simon Sinek, and we're gonna start our programs this way. So I did think it had a catalyst for changing the conversation, right? And I think up until that point, everything was feature benefits, like the yin yang, right? Like a feature benefits, and it allowed us to kind of really say, well, why is this important? So I love that it pivoted the conversation to the why versus just the what and how and all of that. So I think that was really, really important. My challenge is that, you know, when we talk about the why, I feel like it's a moment in time, right? And so I think there's multiple, and I told you my story a little bit, right? But there's multiple, right? You know, whys, it's not just the one. And I think that sometimes the challenge is that we think there's just this one why, and once you found it, that's it. I think it's multiple, right? It's what is happening at this point in time, whether it's a company, whether it's an individual, it's an organization. What is the thing that we're rallying around right now? And can we articulate that? But it doesn't have to be this, what you said, like this, making it like it's going to be this thing forever that's going to live on a permanent for 20 years. It's the why and the reason you're doing what you're doing right now.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, I'll pass it back to you, Jess, because I've got nothing more on the cynic of cynics.
You're feeling.
We're going to quote you and send it back.
Okay.
Don't
Feeling
do
like
that. Don't do
we-
that. I love, like I said, he's brilliant, brilliant. Where the cameras, yes, marvelous, wonderful.
Yeah.
I
He'd be
did.
disappointed if it was still revolutionary today. Like, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that would have undermined what he was trying to get across with it. It was a new way of thinking at the time it was introduced. And I think that would be the purpose of that work,
Right,
was
right.
to advance kind of the social conscious around that.
Yeah.
And so I think he'd probably say mission accomplished.
Yeah, and so to add to that, we've had Marvin Windows, Christine Marvin from Marvin Windows on in this show, right? And I don't know how many years old they are, but they just figured out their purpose just recently. And I thought, holy shit, you've been around this long and you just figured it out, right? You've sold a lot of windows. And they're like, I don't know why I'm all focused on the house, garage doors, windows. Anyway, she said it was to bring light into people's lives, and light brings energy. And I'm like, oh, that's elegant. I love that. I'm glad you figured that out. Yeah, I know. Isn't that nice? Yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice. And it's a window company, but I get it. It totally makes sense. It gives people some purpose, some meaning, some connection to the brand in a nice way. Anyway, I'm not totally a cynic of cynic. I think he did do something great for us. Back to you, Jess.
I'm glad we turned you around on that. So, you know, all that you've done, all that we all do doesn't come without insights and really thinking about the cultural moments that are happening now and what's happening in the future. So I'd love to just hear how you guys think about and where you really get your sort of inspiration and insights and how you apply those and think about those now, but then what do you think about how they evolve over the future?
I'm a big fan of the getting back to the roots of anthropology, ethnographic, like spending time with the customers. Like whenever I've been in a variety of financial services, CPG, small business, I would always make sure that I was spending time with the customers. Like as a business we are so data rich. Like we have too much data and we've relied on that to guide what is our intuition. So I've always been a big fan of kind of that qualitative research. So I personally go out and spend time with the customers. So how can you possibly help them make purchase decisions if you don't understand what it's like to be them on a day-to-day basis? And the data just can't show you that in the same way spending time with customers does. It can improve everything from your actual product, first and foremost, or service, but it can also improve things like your search terms, your keywords. Like the way we talk about products is not the way that your customer is searching for it. I mean, it can be very tactical and it can be very kind of overarching. But like in the case of the small business revolution, that's how that idea occurred. I was spending time with small businesses and I was just so moved by their stories. And I thought, if I'm moved by their stories and I want to support more small businesses, what if we, instead of doing an ad campaign, shared the stories of small businesses and we're seen as creating this movement and being their champions and advocating for the importance of supporting small businesses? What a better place to be than just talking at small businesses. Let's walk along beside them. But had I not been out, if I would have looked at the reams of data we had around small businesses and percentage of women owners versus this or that, or categories of verticals, I don't know that that same thought would have occurred to me, that it was just in the stories. And so I'm just a big fan of just getting out there and putting boots on the ground and understanding what it's like to be real people. Because at the end of the day, we can use all these fancy terms, but these are humans making decisions.
Well said. I agree wholeheartedly. It's get out of the office. And so I've been known to take my teams on road trips. We go, and I love doing shopper insights too. So randomly on my own, you'll see me at stores just like being mystery shopper all the time. And I shop my products, shop my whatever project I'm working on. I'm always shopping it in the store, just being as a mystery shopper and being in the aisles and seeing what people are having challenges with and problems and questions. And I'm like, okay, if I can't answer the questions, the people in the store can't answer the questions, we're having issues here. So I love doing that. But I also love my teams going out and spending time where our products and services are sold, who they're sold with. And I think to you, same point, like spending time on the whiteboard. I love my whiteboard, don't get me wrong, but you can't solve everything at the whiteboard, right? You have to get out there and actually go out into the experience, into the environment and spend time. So that's a prerequisite. We have teams and stuff. I'm looking at my James is here in my front row. He's worked for me and he's taking teams out and taking them to stores and said, listen, if you're going to market these products, you have to know how they work and how they don't work, right? And so I think it's really, really important to do that. So. The other thing I'd add to was my teens. I have 2 teenagers. So in addition to keeping my culture insights, they're also my, they keep me on, what's cool, where sustainability is, where music is trending, influencers, how important they are. So I get a lot of reverse mentorship from my children. And they are the first to tell me when—
Mentorship is such a nice term for
Isn't
that.
it? Well, yeah. I was gonna say, they just tell me what's wrong, Mom. Around, what's working, what's not. I get feedback on campaigns. I get feedback on everything that I do. So they're wonderful.
My son's gonna love that. He's gonna absolutely love that. He's already doing that. I just didn't, put a word to it, and that's great.
Called it feedback.
No, it would, yeah. Anyway,
You're reverse mentoring with.
I was getting reverse mentored.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It is a nice term.
Right.
Yeah. I think there's a whole nother think and link on reverse mentoring. I think right there. You can have the teens up here.
Oh no, maybe.
No. And scene. Amanda, this is for Amanda, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. Have you found more connection in front of, behind the camera as you've sort of found this niche in filmmaking?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think I found for sure behind the camera. I mean, the majority of what I'm working on right now is in a producer director role. So certainly the majority of what I'm working on right now, I'm very much behind the camera. What I enjoyed about being in front of the camera on a Small Business Revolution was that it was an opportunity to direct from in front of the camera. Like I knew what we were trying to creatively achieve through the filmmaking process and the conversations, but could still show up as a real person having a conversation. Yeah, I mean, the Small Business Revolution was a bit of an accident. I didn't go into broadcasting or want to be a host of a television show. It just kind of accidentally happened that we needed someone from Deluxe to play the character of Deluxe. And so in order to show up authentically in each scene and in that process. So I don't know. I mean, I think I would love to host again. I think I like it if it's a meaningful project where I feel like it works. I don't have ambitions just to be in front of the camera.
She's humble. She's really good in front of the camera too.
But I don't have ambitions to do it just to do it. But if it was a meaningful project that I thought really mattered, then I think that there is the creative deserves someone in front of the camera that truly cares about the point of view and the work and the message of it. So instead of just being a talking head, someone who is truly trying to utilize that medium to get that particular message across. So if it was something that mattered in the world and it was moving the social conscious forward, I'd love to do it again. But yeah, but right now I'm mainly focused behind the camera directing. So
that's awesome. I love that. You found a purpose. And your purpose. And Lisa, one for you. So large organizations are incredibly hard to navigate and to build. And how do you sort of figure out the best way, or what do you do for teams to sort of get the results that you need? How do you build that culture?
Very carefully, no. So I have a lot of people here who keep me honest. I'm looking at Lori and James, and Aaron just walked out. But I think it's really to build one team, right? I think marketing, depending on what kind of organization you are, sometimes you have the pleasure of having the team all together at one spot. I didn't always have that. I've always had teams that are desperate in different places. And so for me, it was always been, we're one team, regardless of where you are in the organization. And I think that trying to have the team come around a common purpose, a common goal, that we're all working together has been some way that I've been able to bring us together, whether we're physically or not. So I think that's important. I think just spending time with people. You know, you do your Myers-Briggs or whatever, and I'm a taskmaster kind of person. So I lead usually with the task. And I've had to, in my leadership, learn how to spend more time on the soft skills and around just spending time with people. And I feel like if you spend time not just on the activities, but with people, they will then show up for you when you need them. They will then be there for each other. And so that's been something, I know it's like mother pie, apple pie stuff, but it really was for me really critical to spend time with the team and the team to spend time with each other. So I think that's one way of building team. And then as a role of a CMO, I find like I always say I'm the Shark Tank person. So I'm the person who has to go into these rooms that are non-creative, non-marketing, not my team, but represent my team and ask for money, or represent my team and ensure that we can get the support to do what we want to do. And so for me, that's always showing up as the representative for marketing. And for me, that's also coming in the place of educating. So a lot of times what I spend my time doing is educating on what is it we do, how does it bring impact, and why you should give us more money to do that. And so a lot of that is around that. And so I spend a lot of time trying to build the story, to build the business case, to build the reason, the rationale for that. And I think that not only gets my team excited and rallied, but it also gets the organization to understand the value of the team. And I think it's mutual, right? It has to be not just the team getting along, and we always get along better, like just in our own world, but that our team is respected and valued outside of the marketing world. And that's really, really, as a leader of the group, that's usually where I spend most of my time, ensuring that my team is valued in the organization.
I don't want to run out of time here for audience questions. So Aaron, do you
Oh, the
have
only other
any
thing I was going to
last-
ask, I'm desperately trying to think of anyone else that's tried to replicate the small business revolution or the concept of that, of what you did, right? Usually in marketing, we're the worst copiers. I mean, we steal from everybody, right? Like, oh, look what they did. Let's just do that tactic, right? What do you think? I got an idea of why that hasn't happened. I'm curious what you think about why that no one's been able to replicate that, or tried even, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think it's happening more often than we think in terms of brand storytelling. So I'm headed to a conference next week in Park City as a part of Sundance. It's called Brand Storytelling, which is brands that are doing branded content that is film festival worthy. So there are brands out there doing it. I think it just takes a lot of cojones. Like, I think you have to have a champion to do that kind of work. I mean, I think that's why we're not seeing better work out of most of the brands and companies in the world, is that a lot of people are just afraid of losing their jobs. And so to propose something like that, I mean, I had to stand in front of the board and say, remember how this little bit of money you gave me, we used to be able to measure it and I could tell you exactly the response. Instead, I want to take those measurable dollars, those working dollars, and I want to redirect it to film and storytelling that I can't measure, but we should definitely do it. I mean, it was more articulate than that when I did it, because it happened, so you have to believe me. But that, I mean, I just don't think that there are that many. I mean, you mentioned it yourself, like the tenure of CMO is so short because it's not a brand role anymore. It is a sales role. And you are responsible for the quarterly numbers as much as everyone else in the organization. Lisa can attest. And so it's just very risky to propose something that must be in market longer than one campaign cycle, more than one quarter, in order to be effective, in order to build up that kind of momentum. And so, I mean, we did the show for six seasons, and people always compliment me on getting it sold through to begin with. And it's like, the real work was in season 3 and 4 and protecting the work and continuing to do the, like, we had all the results in terms of it had been successful, but then the company wanted it to do all these other things, like become a sales vehicle and do all the, like, it was as much of protecting it as it was selling it to begin with. And I just think like a lot of CMOs just don't want, I mean, it's a lot to ask a CMO to kind of put their career on the line for an idea like that. But I think we do need to see more of it.
Yeah, your answer is much better than mine was going to be. It looks, it was a cultural move. It was a perfect time for that brand to do that. And it was hard to replicate for anyone else, you know, and you can't do that in 24 months. It's not possible.
It has to be a long-term commitment. Like it has to, yes.
Yeah, you had to go that long, but fascinating. You had to defend it more in the later seasons against the other stuff that would come, which I can totally see that. Like, well, let's do more with this. Just be satisfied with what you got. I mean, it's amazing to think about what that was for that brand to stay relevant. I'm still not writing checks, right? Who's writing checks?
You're all too young.
Oh, one person, anyway. I don't want to pick on Deluxe. We love Deluxe. They're a great company. They were a client for many years when I was at Yamamoto. They're a great company. But anyway, yes. Should we turn it over to the audience for questions? Do you want to walk around? Anyone have a question for our two guests? Kat, make this place, makes it cool here. Thank you.
Thank you. In 2023, one of the words of the year was authentic. What would you like to be the word of the year in 2024?
Oh, that's a good one. By the way, not to go back, but this first time cojones has ever been said on this, just to give you a little time to think about your answer. Cojones, first time. I'm fairly certain that's the first time it'll show up on our YouTube channel. Just to be clear, just to give you enough time. But yeah, authenticity last year. We're no longer authentic this year. What's it this year?
Like it, like personally, or like what companies should stand for? Well, I think it's a phrase. I said it earlier, but I really think there is something to this. We just need to chill the fuck out. Like people are in pain right now. I mean, I don't have to tell you, like people are just struggling, and I feel like they're in this a little bit of a slump. I think we all thought that after the pandemic, everything would go back to some semblance of normal. So we were just holding our breath until it. And then things didn't go back to normal. It's some weird cloned version of normal. Like nothing's as good. Like restaurants aren't open as late. Like nothing is as good. And I think we've just spent the last 2 years in this weird calibration of trying to figure it out. And I think that's why everyone's so optimistic about 24 is like, we've had 2 years of proof that things aren't pre-pandemic normal. And so we just need to move on and just move on with it. And so I think that, I mean, that's been my kind of mantra is like to just enjoy like literally every moment and every day. It's all we know. And I just think we just need to stop making everything so serious. We need to stop disagreeing with everybody. We're all more similar than we're different. We just need to go back to the roots of kindness and being good humans. And I don't know. I just think we need to just bring it down a notch.
So I'm gonna do a 2-word. I'm gonna say I love kindness. I mean, that's something I'm gonna anchor on that. But I think from a business or from working together, I'm gonna say collab and collective are what I'm gonna say. I think we've come out of the pandemic kind of loners a little bit. Everyone trying to do it their own, everyone trying to look at it from their perspective, and some of that's just been hibernating for such a long time. But I think the idea of doing things more as a collab and as a collective, I'm looking for in 2024. So both, whether it's businesses and brands connecting to other people who are sharing the same mission, the same purpose, or personally just finding a collective of people who you get energy from, back to the not soul-sucking energy people, finding energy with a group of people that you can align on something, whether it's just, exercise or a passion project or something like that. But I'm looking for collab and collective in 2024.
I feel like 2 good journal entries coming in here.
Other questions?
Oh, yep. All right, going this way because I'm on the side.
Hi, sorry, my cold is really, I'll sit away from everyone. going back to that branded content, I think we're also in this moment in time where everyone is investing in performance marketing, and it's really hard to get branded content sold through, and has been certainly since the pandemic. I had some success pre-pandemic, and now I think we need it even more than we ever did before. So I would love your thoughts on, because it is so hard to measure, to Amanda's point, it's like, how do you sell that in? How do you show that value to people who are so focused on data and immediate sort of short-term results? Is there a magic formula or some sort of hypnosis we can?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe some of Dawn's crystals or something, right? All right. So I think there were a few different like actual metrics that we of course use to judge the efficacy of SBR. And we of course measured things like brand awareness, brand sentiment, all the things you would expect that a good brand would measure around brand awareness. The thing that I tied it to is very basic how we buy media. So when you buy media, you're buying it based on reach and frequency and how many impressions you're going to get by paying for it. And the case I was making is, I bet if we invest in something really authentic that breaks through because people want to spend time with it versus wanting to skip it, that we will end up reaching more people than we could afford to reach with these dollars. So if we know that we can reach X number of people based on how we would buy media against us to push our message talking at people, I bet that we can reach more people. I didn't say how much more, but I just said more, more people, because people will share it authentically. We can get earned media around it. We will have the organic share in social media. We'll get kind of this kind of groundswell of attention from it. And we ended up not just reaching more people, we ended up reaching 14 times more people than we would have reached if we would have just invested that same amount of money in paid advertising. And every year that actually went up. And so I was able to prove that out from kind of like a how we would buy the ability to get eyeballs on things. And then I just kept making a case for like the gut of it all. Like we know what to do here, people. We know what this means for employees, what it's meant for recruitment. Like I had a CEO change halfway through my time at Deluxe. And he said that one of the reasons that he even like responded to the recruiter's call is because he had seen the series. Like, so he could attest to the fact that it also mattered in terms of recruitment. So that would be the other thing I would say is, can you tie it to metrics that are outside of brand awareness? Can you tie it to things like recruitment, retention, other things that you measure as a company that are not just, directly kind of brand. So it's a little bit like we were talking about with the budgeting thing. Like I had to still do that work in order, in service of the work. I had to figure out how to translate that from a metrics perspective in order to be able to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna, holy shit. Yeah. Not to mention when it comes to that other type of content pushed at us, the advertising, the stuff that we have filters, human filters that are filtering that crap out of our lives, right? Which is literally built into who we are. This went beyond that. Skip that altogether, right? You couldn't even filter it out. You wanted to have this in your life. It was cool. Next.
Sorry. First, I want to say thank you to both of you for your insight. I'm a college student who's just beginning their career, so I feel really lucky to be hearing this early on. My question is, do you believe in the saying, in a professional sense, do you believe in the saying that any experience is good experience? And can you maybe speak on a time that initially an experience did not seem worth it, but it helped you on your journey in the long run?
Oh, what a good question.
Wow.
We need more wine. We need more wine.
Wow.
You must have great parents. Okay, so that is an excellent question. Okay, so I talk a lot about this concept that I call life's constellations, which is like when you think about like every conversation you've had, every coffee you've gone to, every person that you happen to talk to at an event like this, every job you've had, every moment in your life, if you look back and think of them as they were like little stars illuminating. And at the time, you might have not even realized why that was happening, why you said yes to that coffee, why you ran into that person. But when you look back, they've created this like beautiful constellation, which is your life. And I think it's really important to think about every work experience you have the same way. Like you're building a skill set or you're having an experience. So you might not straight out of college work for your dream company or work exactly on what it is, but maybe you're developing the skills to negotiate with colleagues or to fight for an idea or to present in front of a room and advocate for something. Like there are always skills that are being developed. All of these things are like these little stars that are creating what you're going to lead to. And I do think there's two ways to look at your career. You can either think about where do you want to get, and then how do you need to make sure that you're taking jobs that give you the skill sets to get there. Or you can think about like, what do you want your life to feel like, and how do you make sure that you are just continuing to show up in every opportunity that's presented to you and just believe that there's kind of a destiny to like why that opportunity is being created. Either way you want to think about it, it leads you to the same place. But I think it's really important just to show up. Like I'll always struggle with the dichotomy between like how much you should lean in and hustle to make something happen, like the good kind of hustle, like all right, we're gonna make this happen, and the posture of like leaning back and like just like letting things happen. Like I often use the analogy of whitewater rafting. Like if anyone has been whitewater rafting, it is very important that when the guide says lean forward and paddle right now, that you paddle right now. And that if he says lean back, that you're not paddling. If you paddle when you're not supposed to, you're gonna send the entire boat into the rocks. And if you don't lean back, you're going to miss the turn. And so it's very important to know when you're supposed to be doing one thing. And so I'll always struggle with knowing when I'm supposed to be doing either thing in life. But I think when it works to lean forward, it's to just show up and do your best work possible, to use and think about that opportunity as continuing to create your skill set, whether or not it seems fun or obvious right then. Like you'll get to a stage of your life where you'll look back and you'll be like, oh, that's why that person was a total jerk. It's because I was learning how to have perspective, or I was trying, like there's always kind of a purpose to it. So I think looking back at our lives gives you just awe and gratitude. I think maybe awe is my word for this year. I think there's a lot of power in the concept of awe. But if you look at it back with awe, it can also be a tool that you can use today to say the stuff that I'm dealing with right now that seems laborious or unpurposeful or terrible might be these little stars for a future constellation.
I love the star constellation piece. 'Cause I think when you look at your career at the moment in time, you can't see forward, right? And that's what I'm saying. We're at the stage in our career where we're looking backwards a little bit and going, okay, it makes sense now, but at the time it didn't, right? And I think I told you a little bit about my story, starting off in technology. And my very first project I had was actually programming for the train to get rid of the caboose at the back of the train. So my son's still mad about this because it was like, we got rid of the caboose on the trains. But the idea, what I learned there was all about change management, right? And at the time, I just thought really, micro about that project. But I really learned at a very young age, I was negotiating with unions and figuring out that this is a really big deal to get rid of this thing. And I learned so much in that. And so it was a very, not something I can apply to my life today at all in terms of that specific project. It was so specific, but the skills I learned from that are something that I use today. And I think all along my journey, I've had these really interesting jobs where, I wasn't sure exactly where it was going to lead to, but I knew at the time this is what I wanted to do, and it sounded really, really interesting. And I always went for the interesting. And then now when I go back and look at my career, all the things I've learned, I'm somehow leaning on them. And it's, it's more by chance now than it was planned. But I think that was really cool. And the other thing I would add too is summer jobs were really fun. I was a camp counselor, I've been a teacher, I've been lots of really interesting jobs over the summer, and each one has kind of taught me either I'll never want to do that, or this is something I'm really good at. But either way, I learned from it. So yeah, as you can see, I didn't become a teacher. So.
Wow. Next question. You're gonna have to top that. Go for it.
Hi there. Thanks again for sharing your insights with us. Now, we've had a conversation around cynics of cynics and purpose, but what I do hear is both of you have a focus on doing things purposefully, whether it's awe or conviction or confidence, helping others. I'm curious how you think about bringing down the noise, chilling out personally and for your teams when there is so much noise in the world, in media that comes to us, in the things we have to do every day. How do you do that? And how do you instill that in people around you?
That's another good one.
Yeah,
I told you our
yeah.
audience is good.
Yeah, again,
Yeah.
I'm gonna lean back on my teens because I do it to my teens too, which is unplug. You know, it sounds so like, but we really do that. And we had to do that during one of my coping strategies during COVID was also we had like non-tech days, literally where it was just nature, waterfalls, board games, and just to unplug because there was so much, not only noise, there was so much sadness, right? And so for me, I think unplugging is a way to kind of like, you know, work from the energy from within versus the energy that's kind of like pulling at me or maybe writing a narrative for me. And so it allows me to kind of reset my narrative, reset my energy. So I find that really, you know, simple, but I do have unplugged days where I'm like, people like, I don't know what's going on the TV today because I haven't looked at it. I've not looked at the TV. I've not listened to the news and allow myself to reset my thoughts, my ideas, and my energy. So
I love that someone's been in digital transformation is unplugging.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's good.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
fits.
yeah,
That's
yeah. I'm
nice.
at the economy as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I think that I love that. And then I think like remember fun? Like that was cool. Like let's keep it, I know, right? Like I think it's a little bit about just levity and joy. Like a lot of the work that we're focused on at Sunshine Studios is about mission-based work. But mission is very, I mean, something that matters in the world right now is joy. Like just things that bring you moments of joy and make you laugh and just make you like go back to that human experience of connecting with another person. And so I think it's about, I mean, I think I don't manage a team in an office right now. We're out a lot, but I really feel for leaders who are trying to figure out this whole and navigate this whole hybrid work from home, work in the office thing. And I don't know that I have an opinion on it. But I do think that there is great value in bringing teams back together again. I think as humans, we're meant to be together. We are meant to feel each other's energy quite literally in a room. We are meant to feed off of each other. And so I think those are a couple of things. Like we are always best, like when we're back out on a set together, we're having all these Zoom calls talking about prepping for it. But those couple of days where we are like literally together are just invaluable. And so I'd say it's a combination of just levity. And then I think also just making sure that you're prioritizing like the in-person nature of it and leaning into like what we need. So
fun.
Remember
That
that
concept. I've heard of that. Yeah. We have time for one more question. Just barely, or, oh, right over here.
Okay, so we've brought up teenagers a lot, and I have 3 of them, and they're very, we have life lessons every week. We go out to brunch and we talk. One of the things that I've taught them is something that Amanda taught me like 20 years ago, is a very easy fact, but it's so true. It's so relevant. It's about doing things in the moment. Like if you think about, oh, I need to do the laundry, like do it right now, or, you know, you can explain better. And I would like to know what you guys' thoughts are on purpose for teenagers in micro doses, you know, like a really small, just like a little bit of information about how to, in that same way, in that same spirit of just like, here's a great technique to learn in your life for purpose.
I love that teenagers are a theme, a thread throughout this whole thing for some reason. That's great.
Totally. So that's called the one touch rule that we talked about way back then. Oh, what? Oh yeah. Okay, we'll come back to that. We'll put a pin in it. I think so. I don't have a teenager yet. I have a 12-year-old, so middle school. So like I'm in it. I think again, I think we've made purpose so big for our kids too. We think we're being encouraging. We are telling them, go live your purpose, find your purpose. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. We've told them all these things. And I think we're making it too big for them too. Like we're making it this really, really big thing where they feel like, how will I ever achieve anything? And so what I try to do with our daughter, and you probably have maybe a different set of advice with kids that are older, but is I try to really explain that we are really all part of one big ecosystem. Like when we think about the word purpose, the things that people use the most often are like curing cancer, ending homelessness. Like we use these huge like global issues as like, well, I'm not curing cancer, so I guess I'm not living my purpose. Like it's a turn of phrase that people use. And it's like, well, no one person is ever going to cure cancer. Like someone's going to have a discovery in a lab. And that lab is only there because a team of people fundraised for it who are good at business development. And that particular like researcher is only there because her parents encouraged her to go into the medical field. And the only reason that she's doing that study is because there were 4 studies before that that led to that. And and so I try to explain that to our daughter a lot. Like no one person solves anything. It's all about it's what we talked about earlier. What is your superpower? What are you really good at? How do you make people feel better and contribute and feel good when you're doing it? And then that's part of something that's much bigger, and it'll all kind of work together. And every faith and every spirituality has a different terminology for it, right? Like Christianity calls it the body of Christ. And anyway, every kind of spiritual practice has a different term for that concept. But I think we kind of sometimes forget that. We become so individual and so isolated that it's really about like seeing yourself in that bigger picture. So that's how I kind of try to talk about it. Is I try to make her feel like, or just see that there's purpose in, and for us too, like an email doesn't feel purposeful, but the tone we use to the person can either like make their day or you can drain their soul. Like you get to choose in every interaction. When you call into a call center and you're mad that there's a policy, having empathy in the moment that they did not create the policy and they are there to help you, and they are a human who is going to go home, who has children, and they're going to carry the energy you just gave over the phone all the way through to that child. Like that, how is that not purpose? If not, we are only an accumulation of every moment in our lives and every either building someone up or tearing them down. And so that's what I try to explain to her, is like just see purpose in everything you do.
I think I try and spin the purpose a little bit for them to learning, right? Around, there's always a learning thing. And so I allow them to we have an opportunity to deep dive or like kind of rabbit hole into something. So I try and feed their interests. If they're into something and they're saying, I want to learn about food, and I have a son who's a budding engineer, and so he's always curious about something, and we go, let's go a little deeper, right? And so what's the interest in there? And try and find something that maybe it's not a purpose, but maybe it's a passion. Maybe it's something that they're really, really interested in. And so if I could buy a book, do a lesson, get a speaker, whatever it is, or something that they're interested in, that I can maybe spark a passion or fuel that passion, I try and do that as much as possible, so that my kids are at least getting exposure to so many different things before they zero in and nail in into one thing, which I feel that's another challenge too, that people are trying to ask them to like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I don't know, but here's all the things I'm interested in. Here's all the things I'm passionate about, and trying to give them that as a way to answer that question in a different way.
That was great. That was a great finishing question for sure for this whole conversation. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you both for doing this. Round of applause from our audience, hopefully. And thank you, Jess, for being my co-host. You were fantastic.
Thank you
Way
for
to
having
go.